I'll try to make this shorter. Here's the victim, Mr. President. Your FBI, Mr. President, didn't do their job. They became part of her murder gang. The gang to murder this lady. Let's see who she is. Let's see if I can make it close enough that you can read it. Henny Carlisle is a native of the Netherlands who has been volunteering for more than 50 years, and that was 10 years ago they had this. As the spouse of the late retired Master Sergeant Leon Carlisle, she traveled to many places. They were Ethiopia, Morocco, Spain, Germany, New Mexico, and there's Ethiopia, where she was a Cub Scout leader, den mother in Ethiopia, and a member of the Red Cross. She came to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in 1971, only to be murdered with the approval of the commanding officer of the Air Force Base, who hid under his desk. The lowlife, Colonel Don Yates. Strip him from his command because he's a murderer. Yes, he refused to do his sworn duty under the Constitution and allowed her to be killed and joined the murder conspiracy as a co-conspirator. Simple first term law school criminal law. The man is in deep. Remove him from his command as soon as you realize how deep he is gonna go down. Okay. She came in 71 with her husband and has since volunteered in the dental clinic, the post office, the legal office, and most recently in the tax center for 28 years before she had a mini stroke that didn't seem to the outside world hurt her, but to me I knew she had been hurt by it, badly damaged, no memory loss, but lots of other things. I took care of her and I stayed in her home as I had been for 13 years before. I had not left. She recertifies her tax filing training annually and hopes to continue to volunteer for, and she did for many years, because this is, I think, like 2010. She has 2 sons, evil men, as it turns out. They wanted their inheritance. Well, only one is clearly designated, but the other one did enough that I suspect he knew. She has 2 sons. 2 sons. And a granddaughter. What did I say? Last 28 years or so at tax office as preparer, most of which as the senior tax volunteer who was there on Seymour Johnson Air Force Base site expert. And the Seymour Johnson Air Force Base Commander Colonel Don Yates and the U.S. Air Force Air Combat Command Commander, a 4-star general, stiffed their responsibility under the U.S. Constitution and long-established law 18 U.S.C. for periods of 2 weeks and 8 days respectively, stonewalled claim of her being a hostage and that her life is in extreme jeopardy and that there were 22 felonies they need to pass up per 18 U.S.C. 4. They didn't do it, refusing to accept and pass on to DOJ D.C. Probably the best place would have been, as I told the people who would talk to me at Joint Base, Eustace Langley. Yeah, I talked to for hours to various people, including some threatening security officers who I basically read the riot act to. They tried to scare me. They weren't doing their job. They weren't listening. They were just acting like thugs. Well, that's their problem. Felonies under 18 U.S.C. 4. 22, I stopped writing at 22. There's more like 35 to 45. criminal conduct by many. General James M. Holmes, 4-star General Mike Holmes, I guess he knew about it, and he told him how to play the game. We're not going to take them. And eventually he got chicken shit, and he called Colonel. He got Colonel Don Yates of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, the commander of magnificent jets, F-15 Screaming Eagles, the commander of the base, because the Screaming Eagles, that group, 4th Fighter Wing, is based here. And the dude would rather hide under his desk than do his job as sworn by the Constitution. He had a stupid-ass lawyer named Lt.Colonel Elizabeth Sprecher, who must have given him that bad advice. Martha Beach, a former Air Force paralegal, told me they'd have no choice but to take him and to expedite him. Well, she turned out to be wrong, and she turned out to be scared because they weren't calling her back. But I had her recall them, Elizabeth Sprecher, 2 times in my presence, and each time I had her tell whoever was taking the message that it was urgent for her to be called back. And she was an attorney now, not a paralegal. She had been an attorney for about a decade, probably a lot of it in the town of the Air Force Base. And Sprecher hid under her desk. Sprecher violated her oath of office. Sprecher's part of the whole conspiracy, and they had time to save this woman. Sprecher called me later, but refused. She didn't want to do anything other than what previously on Memorial Day, what the Colonel Don Yates tried to do. He tried to suborn perjury from me. He tried to get me, he tampered with me as a witness and as a complainant. And yes, he allowed Henny to be murdered. Your commander of your fighter wing, Mr. President, is a murderer. No, he's not going to be prosecuted because you'll cover it up for him unless you are an honest president. The man made a bad call, and he can throw himself on the mercy of the court, say, my lawyer told me to do it. But he can read that law, and that law is simple. And it got violated by a dozen and more officials, many of them directly under your command, Mr. President. That woman was my best friend. She was like a mother to me. She was like a sister to me. She was like, no one could be so kind. And she spent over 50 years, close to 60 years, volunteering for the Air Force, and they snuffed her out. The U.S. Air Force, General Mike Holmes, he has to be taken off his command. He's a dangerous man when he won't abide by laws of America. Colonel Don Yates, guilty of murder. Holmes is not. I don't believe Holmes has any chance of ever being guilty of murder. Murder after the fact, but not before the fact. Yates was before the fact, so is Sprecher, I do believe. They're in deep, deep, deep trouble. But only if our country begins to work again, only if places like Lindsey Graham's office, who are part of the cover-up, they don't take complaints against murdering FBI agents. They say it's outside Lindsey's jurisdiction. Well, maybe it is. Then he should resign. Lindsey Graham is a jackass if he thinks it's outside it. He's a jackal, too. It's within his jurisdiction, you fools. He should never have aides as stupid as you. Lindsey Graham, you need to clear out your office of those kind of aides. Or re-educate them if you think that it was an honest mistake. I can't imagine it being when they hear someone got murdered by the FBI's doings. That's not honest. Same thing with my congressman. My congressman's name, Ralph Norman. He's probably a 8th cousin of mine. He's from the Carolinas. My Normans are from the Carolinas. But his aide said, oh, don't worry about the crimes anymore. They're all in the past. Mr. President, you tell Congressman Norman There's no crime, no normal crime ever that isn't something from the past. That's what crime is. You gotta cure it. They said I had to forget them. They said I was in too much trouble. Well, I am in trouble. I am in trouble. Your FBI could kill me in any moment, and I don't care. I want you to hear this. I want you to hear this without electronics. I want to scream it out to you. Stop these people. They're killing our elders across the nation, and they make it disappear. They have some of the best people, supposed best people of Wayne County that evidently have joined in. Let's kill those elderly people who have no one to speak up for them. Well, I was willing to speak up, but they took a crowbar and removed me from our home with that wonderful lady. They removed me from her hospital bed where I'd been there for 24 hours, had not gone home. I'd gone and ate something while she slept for an hour or two and came back and found her awake again. 24 hours, and then the doctor and a Confederate, one of the UNC people. UNC has to be shut up. They need a receiver to take them over and to catch all the people who are coordinating with these elder cleansing doctors, including the ones at the UNC Chapel Hill and the ones at the administration that assisted the crowbar takeover by holding me there for 2 hours before I got to see Miss Carlisle one last time. Mr. President, your government has become a monster. You don't know it, but once you hear it, you're going to want to stop it. You don't want to be a killer, do you, Mr. President? You've stopped air raids because they would be too likely to kill too many people that had nothing to do with the problem. Well, this is killing your elders, Mr. President. Do something! God, you gotta hear this! You got to hear this! Someone tell him! Yes, I sound insane. Insanely desperate. Oh my God! You murdered this wonderful woman. Your administration did it. Now stop it! Catch him! You do something, man! Or you are part of them.